This is the Kitchen Sink WP Podcast, episode 478.
I program my home computer.
We have a server crash, 404 error, page not found, links aren't working, system is crashing, system is crashing, system is crashing.
Your old HTML website, barely alive. We have the technology. We have WordPress. A new website, better than it was before. Better, stronger, faster. Why, hello everybody, this is Adam Silver, the host of the Kitchen Sink WP podcast. Thanks for being here. Let's get started. All right, upcoming events. No WordCamps next weekend, sadly, but there is something you can participate in. Atarim is hosting the 4th Annual Virtual Web Agency Summit, April 25th through 28th. It's free, so check that out. All right, moving on. Segment 1 in the news. A few things to talk about here. First and foremost, WordCamp Europe has announced free childcare and workshop for kids. Very cool. So we're going to WordCamp Europe this year. By the way, it's in Athens, if I'm not mistaken, in Greece. So that's pretty cool. Also in the news, CertifyWP has released phase 1 of the WordPress Credential for the exams for the design management course. That's over at CertifyWP. By the way, the goal for CertifyWP is to create a standardized level of proficiency in WordPress. Credentials give a professional an advantage in the hiring process as they provide evidence to the employers that a candidate has the skills they claim. They can also affect pay negotiations in some cases. That's from their website, from the press release as well. So check that out as well. All right. Also in the news, lastly, here is WordPress 6.3 planning proposal and call for volunteers is now open. The target date to release, by the way, is August 8th. So that is we're in April, May, June, July. So about 4 months from now. Pretty cool. So yeah, early August would be the release date for that, the target date to release 6.3. So all right, is that it in the news? I think that's it in the news. Right on. Moving right along to segment 2, the meat potatoes of this week's episode. So recently, I launched a site for a client. Well, my team launched a client for a site, and the new site training was completed, along with the final payment was received. And the question begs, now what? On to the next project, right? Well, sure, yes, of course. But before that, or alongside of that, I'm taking the approach of having a project review, aka the Project Post Mortem Meeting. Okay, so this week's episode, the topic is just that, the post-mortem meeting. And yes, a side note, post-mortem sounds like a negative as in death, but in reality, I think it should be looked at in the positive as a way to learn and grow. Okay, so that being said, I spent some time, I looked online for some help and some content here as far as like, how would I make this work for myself or my agency? And I came up with an outline that I will use as a guide with my team moving forward. And here are the 10 questions that I'm going to be focusing on during this process from now on. And also, I'm going to go through the 10 things, and then I'm going to come back to them and kind of indicate how this last project went in relation to those things for some of them, if that makes sense. All right, so first, number 1, the project plan was well defined and communicated from start. Number 2, the initial project goals were clear. Number 3, we were allocated resources. The allocated resources were adequate for achieving our goals. Number 4, the original project timeline was realistic. Number 5, our project team worked well together. Number 6, did our team work effectively with the client? Number 7, we got the project results we wanted. Number 8, what went well on the project? Number 9, what aspect of the project was most frustrating? And number 10, what was the most satisfying part of the project? Now, of course, there's also a section on this little document that I made for additional comments. Okay, so I'm gonna go back now real quick and kind of answer a few of these, how this may come in a discussion from a meeting perspective with my team. So number 1, for example, the project plan was well defined and communicated from the start. So this would be a reference both to us and the client. Did we understand, was it well defined from what we were going to deliver and what they wanted? Okay. The answer here is yes. I believe it was pretty well defined. Not 100% perfect looking back at it, but we kind of knew what was going on. It was a brand new design, implementation, hosting, management, etc. So that was pretty good. Number 2, the initial project goals were clear. If not, how would I fix this? So the answer here is, were they clear? It's kind of an overlap with number 1. And truth be told, better scope and discovery really should have happened. And that's really on me because that's my role and job in this situation. So number 3, were the allocated resources adequate for achieving the goals? Yes. Okay. Number 4, the original project timeline, was it realistic? Yes. Of course, delays happened. The client wasn't ready with content. I'll come back to that a little bit later. But the original project timeline was totally realistic. Did it launch on time? No, to be honest. Okay. I'm going to skip over to number 7. We got the project results, the results we wanted. Yes, in a sense that the site went live and we got paid. It's okay. Number 8, what went well in the project? Well, the site was revamped. The client appears to be happy and satisfied. That's good. Number 9, what aspects of the project were most frustrating? This would be just client communications. And that was on me to some extent. There was a portion of time that I was trying to be hands off and I really shouldn't have done that. So I'm going to own that. That's me. It's my company, right? So there's that. Yeah, so I skipped a few in there because the project was small, whatever it was. The team was just, anyway. So moving on to the other comments, in that area for myself, I wrote new technology and processes to implement, for example, Project Huddle or Marker.io. That review process was really underwhelming and a problem, actually. So that will be implemented from now on. We will have to use some sort of review process that's easier versus email. The client has to be educated early on and sign off on that specifically. Also going to be in my new comments and notes, changing the process for the client review. We will only show the client the first revision from now on after they get all content in. We'll do the milestones. I'll do wireframes. We'll do the mock-ups. We'll build the first site, but we won't show them the first site with dummy content. That just can't happen anymore from my perspective in my world, because more often than not, the clients I've worked with can't see past dummy data, lorem ipsum, or stock photography. They just can't see past it. So we won't let them see the site anymore until they send all content in. We implement that content, and then they can get the first review and give us feedback. Okay, so that's the overall gist of what we'll be going forward with. Now, depending on who worked on the project, this may look different for you and your team versus my team. In this case, it was just me and my project manager. In your case, it could be business development person, sales, that's like my role, project manager, designer, developer, and a QA person. It's going to vary who's going to be involved with this. That said, I could make this into a template, and I did for myself. I send this out, ahead of time to my team so we can have a Zoom meeting about it. If your team is spread around the country or the world, you could do this via Slack, so it's asynchronous a little bit, get some feedback. And lo and behold, yeah, it's now part of my agency process. I made it this way. It's solidified. Of course, I can modify it down the line, but I think these 10 questions are key. And by the way, the first handful of questions are gradable, 1 through 5. So you give it yes, 1 is the lowest, 5 is the most positive, like do you agree or disagree kind of thing. I made it a sliding scale, so just like that. Anyway, I'm curious, do you have a process for this as well? I would love to hear what your process is for postmortems, for after projects are done and whatnot. And of course, it gets me thinking about this right now. The next logical step would be to get feedback from the client, which is always scary. And I'm not going to lie, I'm a little leery on this one, asking them for feedback, because it may not be positive, but I think we can grow from that. So I probably will reach out and ask for some feedback as well, because you know what? Otherwise, how can we grow? How do we know? How do we get better and iterate from that process? And I know what went wrong. I do. So it's not like it's not a big secret, but it might be good to hear from them as well. And they may appreciate being able to give that feedback. So there you have it. All right, moving on. Segment 3, tip and tool of the week. This week's tip, it's a book. It's called Building Blocks, The Evolution of WordPress 2013 to 2023. Of course, this is volume 2 of the Building Blocks WordPress book. It's in Git. They're actually looking for help right now. If you want to help look into it, it's over at make.wordpress.com. I will put a link in the show notes. So let me click this real quick here. See, what's the word? Actually, I don't have the link. Yes, I do. I have the link. It's long. It's convoluted, but I'll put the link in the show notes. If you want to help, you can. And what they're looking for is want people to review the content versus the syntax, I think is what they're looking for. Anyway, check it out. It's the 20th anniversary this year coming through. So May 27th will be 20 years for WordPress. So there's a book on it as well. So check that out in the show notes. All right, that is it this week. Let me wrap it up here. If you have any questions, by all means, go ahead, send them in. Adam@KitchensinkWP.com, or use a speak pipe function on the website. If you want to support the show, you can become a Patreon. That'd be great. KitchensinkWP.com/Patreon. You could sponsor the show. There's a form on the website. If you're looking to start a side hustle or a new business, you want some accountability and some coaching, check out my coaching program at adamsover.com/GC. Thanks for listening. See you next week. Now go out and do some awesome things with WordPress. All right? Bye-bye.